What is going on, Mountaineer Nation, fellow college basketball fans? This is Couz,
And my name is Mountaineer Paul.
and we present to you
Hoops from the Hills.
We are proud to have two special guests on with us today. We have Rush and Ryan from the Ryan and Rush Show. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Appreciate you having us back.
Absolutely.
Great to be on, Couz and Paul. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy days to chat with us about March Madness and about the Mountaineers matchup coming up against the Terrapins, man. Before we get into the Terrapins specifically, Ryan and Rush, I want to get your all's thoughts on what do you like about the bracket? Do you like the bracket we're in, the region we're in? And, the fact that we're matched up with the number one overall seed in Alabama. Ryan, you go first.
I think everybody right when the bracket came out was like, oh man, we're in Alabama's region. But I like in March Madness, I don't even look that far. It's so much like we've seen UMBC upset Virginia. We've seen 15 seeds over 2s, 14 over 3s in the past couple of years where you worry about Alabama when you get to Alabama. Personally, I like the Maryland matchup. I think we match up well with them. And we'll dive into that matchup. So I like the bracket. And honestly, sometimes if we get by Maryland, getting your crack at one of the top teams early is better than late, in my opinion.
Not a bad thought.
Yeah, just as Ryan was saying that where teams can get tripped up in March Madness is looking ahead, right? So Maryland should be our only thought right now. But in terms of kind of being on the media side of things where we can look ahead, we don't want the rest of the team to look ahead, but for us looking ahead, I mean, we just came off the gauntlet of the Big 12 season. I'll play anyone, anywhere. We saw what we did to Auburn during the SEC Challenge. A couple stats Ryan and I were talking about on our show yesterday is 11 of the 33 teams West Virginia's played this year are a 3 seed or higher in the tournament. 17 of the 33 teams, so over half the teams we played this year are NCAA tournament teams. Wow. And no Big 12 seed is a double-digit seed. Obviously, Ryan and I talked a little bit yesterday, the controversy of Oklahoma State. Well, that's a different topic for a different time, but I'll play Maryland, especially with Maryland not being a good team on the road or neutral site. They do well. This game's not at College Park, so hey, if we can do well in the Big 12 or, do what we needed to do in the Big 12, I'll play anyone.
What about you, Paul?
Yeah, and that 2-9 road record and 3-2 neutral site record speaks volumes to the kind of team they are. Undefeated at home they were in conference play 10-0. So those are both impressive and flabbergasting numbers at the same time. I guess you could say similar things about us, although I think we were better on the road, obviously, and definitely neutral site. And also, I mean, everybody plays better at home. But, man, they had a horrendous road record, and they lost to teams like Nebraska, squads like that you just wouldn't think they would lose to. Ohio State. But, in my opinion, the bracket lines up nicely for us. I asked for Alabama. You guys probably saw me tweeting that out. I truly feel like that is a team, and that's looking ahead, but I truly feel like that's a team that can be got as a number one seed. I think they're definitely a top 3 seed, but I don't think it'll all bear itself out. But there's a lot of people putting them in the Final Four that are going to be disappointed, in my opinion. If we don't knock them off, I think somebody else will down the line. Just not too sold on them. They've got one really good guy that's a lottery pick. They've got another guy that protects the rim. Outside of that, I'm really not too impressed with them. Creighton is who I worry about in this bracket, along with Baylor, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I like the fact that Ryan, who's a former coach, says we can't look ahead. We got to focus on Maryland, one game at a time, right?
Yeah.
Just trained him well.
Yeah.
Typical coach answer.
Yep.
But
worry
he's
about
right.
Alabama when you get there.
That's right. But he's honestly right, especially from a player's and coach's perspective.
There's no doubt.
Maryland's going to be a hard enough task in front of them without, looking ahead. But what I like about the matchup with Maryland, I know I told you guys off camera that I was a little bit nervous about this matchup, but I'm nervous about every matchup, so I don't know that really counts. But what I do like about Maryland is the fact they've lost 3 of their last 5, not counting the conference tournament. Taking that out of the equation, they've lost 3 out of their last 5 games, including the game at Ohio State that I mentioned. They've lost to Penn State. They've lost to teams they should have beaten. Whereas, on the other hand, West Virginia's won 3 of their last 5 games. So I feel like we're kind of moving in the opposite direction as programs. I feel like West Virginia's playing their best ball of the season, whereas Maryland may not be. So I like that aspect of it. And obviously, you've got obviously based on seed, you got 2 evenly matched teams here. Arguably the 2 toughest conferences in the country. So many say the Big Ten is the second toughest conference in the nation. So it'll be a good matchup, and I think it's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is it's 2 teams that want to play physical and pride themselves on the defensive end from a culture standpoint. Kevin Willard's in his first year. They transitioned over from Mark Turgeon. The easy matchup to watch here is who gets the better of one another at the point guard position. Jameer Young is really good for them, but he hasn't seen a guy like Kedrian Johnson that's going to hound him for 40 minutes. I mean, we've played good point guard after good point guard after good point guard. We saw what he did to Jelly Walker, what he just did to Marquise Noel. He made it hard for Mike Miles at TCU. I mean, we faced really, really good point guards. So it's just another task for Keedy, I think, on Thursday afternoon.
I agree, and I have confidence that he'll be able to limit his points and his production and make somebody else beat him. Which they've been able to do most of the year. Rush, what are you in your mind? What are the keys for West Virginia to win this game?
It's going to be bench play. I think we're a lot deeper team than Maryland. I think our guards, Seth Wilson, Toussaint coming off the bench are going to be huge. I know you said that, we've talked about that this Maryland team doesn't like to foul a lot. So I think it's going to be kind of similar to, when we play Oklahoma, obviously a different team than Oklahoma and what they try to do. But Oklahoma is another team that doesn't foul a lot either. So I think it's okay for us to be the aggressor, because if they're not deep and they don't foul a lot, and I know, we've benefited from being fouled, we get to the free throw line, but free throws have also come back to bite us. I like our position in being the aggressor. I like how deeper we are. Like Ryan was saying, that Keedy, Jameer Young matchup. I mean, yeah, there's no way barely anyone's seen anyone like Keedy, unless you played in the Big 12 or played West Virginia in the non-conference schedule. We've talked about it all season. He's been the glue of this team. He's been as close as you can get to having like a Deuce McBride on this team without the NBA talent. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just good old West Virginia basketball. I mean, there's obviously it's with March Madness, right? There is that pride of wanting to go far, but there's also this regional pride at it too, right? It was, right. Pitt, Virginia Tech, Penn State. Yeah, those are kind of our historic rivals. But I'll tell you what, Ryan and I are both, from Northern Virginia. We came to school here. We call ourselves converted West Virginians because we love it out here a lot. But there's, when you just go that whole 68, 72, 70, when it starts getting from West Virginia to Maryland, there's some people that don't like each other there. So, I mean, okay. just the pride of it as well is a big factor. And I think, maybe regular season, you don't see that as much come to play, but I think this time of year is when you just see who wants it more. So I think that benefits us as well.
Paul, what do you think keys to victory are for the Mountaineers?
Well, I think, Rush definitely just touched on, if you watch this show at all, I've been a sounding board basically for the same keys to victory all year, only because the numbers have bared it out that way. When this team goes to the line and they make free throws and they have fewer than 10 turnovers, they win games. When they score 75 points or less, they lose games. So those are 2 key stats. I think we've won 2 games. I'd have to look back at it, trying to remember something by memory, but we either haven't won any games, or we've won 2 when scoring 75 or less. So that's something we need to get up and over. Another thing that I worry about is the efficiency of Maryland. Just looking up, they're in a class that I never would have thought I would see them in. They're in a group with, it's Maryland, Purdue, UConn, Creighton, Texas, Kansas, Houston, Alabama, and UCLA, all in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency.
Wow.
which was something I learned on the podcast with Casaza and Chris Anderson. So I give them their props for that stat. But yeah, so I heard that just right before he came on the show and thought that was a really interesting stat to hear. I didn't realize that they were so efficient. But I still don't think that 1 through 9 or 8, whichever, how many guys we throw out there, outside of Purdue, you can't. I mean, who have they seen with our level of talent? I don't know. You know, it's tough to move across conferences and try to project. You know, you try to see teams that we both played, things like that. It's difficult to do, really. And so you crunch numbers and you do the best you can with it. I still think, like Rush said, Mountaineers are favorable, especially the 6 through 8 or 9. And our style this year has been to draw fouls. So I think we do that. I think we draw fouls. I think we go to the line, and I think we make our foul shots at an 80% clip, just like we have for the last 8 to 10 games.
Right. Guys, we're here. I want to remind you all we're here with Ryan and Rush from the Ryan and Rush Show. Guys, real quick, where can our listeners find you guys at before we move on?
At Ryan and Rush Show, Instagram, Twitter. That's our handle as well on our YouTube page. Right now, we want to throw this at. We're doing a $10 March Madness bracket as well. You can Venmo me at Rambling Rush, and then I'll send you back the link and the password for the group. Top 5 places get a share of the prize. And of course, we're running a March Madness special. So I'm not sure how much longer the fiance is going to let me rock this handlebar mustache, but hey, maybe maybe I can work out a deal as long as the Mountaineers are in it. We can keep going. So, hey, we'll see.
I appreciate that, man. And as you can see, they have their Twitter handles, individual Twitter handles on the screen as well, at Rambling Rush and at Moneyline_Mac on the screen if you want to reach out to them on their individual Twitter accounts. And of course, Paul's at Paul Mountaineer on Twitter, and I'm at Couz 206 if you want to check us out as well. But anyway, guys, what else about this game? Ryan, what else about this game was notable for you?
It's just, you guys kind of hit it on the head with the regional angle. I mean, last time we played Maryland was in Columbus in 2015, a game where we wore them down with our physicality. Melo Trimble got knocked out. I know Maryland fans thought it was a cheap shot, which it wasn't, by Nate Adrian, but I think our physical brand of basketball is going to prevail again. I think that's when you're watching this game Thursday afternoon around when everybody's calling in sick to their employers that they got the flu bug at noon on Thursday. I think who can impose their will down there in Birmingham the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game. I think we're going to know right off the bat. And I anticipate it being us, just like it's going to be a breath of fresh air getting out of this gauntlet. Like every time that we went to the tournament when I was there, it was like, thank God we don't have to play another Big 12 game. We've played 20 of them in the last 2 months. I'm exhausted, tired of seeing these teams. Everybody knows everybody. These coaches are so good. The athleticism, size, and talent is on a different level. So it's like a breath of fresh air, a new season. And I think we'll play really hard and we'll look really fresh as well because we lost early in the Big 12 tournament. So got an extra couple days to refresh our legs a little bit coming into March.
And I think that was needed because not only the physical strain that it took for them to make the run they made and get into the tournament, but the mental strain that it had to be weighing on them. The pressure, these are what 18 to 22-year-old young men, or now it's like 24, I guess, 18 to 24-year-old young men. But I mean, that's a lot of pressure to put on these guys, man, knowing they had to win a game. Every game they played there at the end of the season, they almost had to win, right? And so to me, the mental stress was probably just as impactful as the physical going into the Big 12 tournament. And now all that's over with. It's behind them. I even put on Twitter, losing that game to Kansas could have been a blessing in disguise, to be honest with you.
No doubt.
Because, like you said, they need the rest, not only physically but mentally. And I think they're going to come out ready to play. Interesting to hear Hugs talk about how many guys haven't been in the tournament. Eric Stevenson, even though he's playing his 5th year, has never played in the NCAA tournament in his whole career.
Wow.
These guys are going to be ready to go, in my opinion. And I don't think I would want to be facing this team at this time. Just my opinion.
Yeah, and I think Eric Stevenson is a well-known name, obviously in the Big 12 and for Mountaineer fans, but on a national stage, I don't think he's completely recognized how good, or people don't realize how good he is. And a lot of these stars,
No,
like Marquise Noel at K-State, I don't think the national audience knows how really good that guy is. So guys like Eric Stevenson, I think, have a heck of an opportunity to really make a household name for themselves. And you have a 30-point game, and your stock goes even up more on the biggest stage. And I think you're absolutely right. Like some of these teams that went on big conference tournament runs, like let's say a Penn State, for example, where you had to play 5 games in 5 nights.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how they look coming out. Like when the emotion wears down, you got to get back up, man. We just played 5 games in 5 days, and now we got to turn around and play another game against a quality opponent just 3 days later.
Yeah. Agreed.
great point.
The only other thing that concerns me with this game is the volume in which Maryland likes to shoot the ball from the 3-point line. And West Virginia's 3-point defense has not been great this year. We've seen what teams like Baylor can do. Now, they don't shoot as high a percentage as somebody like Baylor, but they do shoot at about 33, 34% from 3. And if they start making some of those shots, that concerns me a little bit. But that's – I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Rush, I'll go with you. What do you think about the 3-point?
Kind of going back to being the aggressor take is, some of those threes might go in. It happens. But if you're wearing them down, you're being the aggressor. Don't forget that this West Virginia team is a great offensive rebounding team.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something we've been consistent with all season long. So in a weird way, kind of the best way to defend that is to just keep getting on offense, wearing them down on defense, and making them go to that bench, instigating those fouls, getting some of those guys out of the game and going back to the bench. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but maybe the literal 3-point defense hasn't been as, great as we wanted it to be. But I feel like you do all those other things there. I mean, we saw it against the Kansas game, right? As our legs started to kind of come under us, we were tired. We were in all those must-win, can't-lose games for what seemed like a month and a half. We just beat Texas Tech. We're playing a game next. By the end of the first half, those 3-pointers started, falling a little bit short. And I think you could see something like that with this Maryland team as well, is if you're grinding them on other parts of the floor, making them, transition, getting them into transition defense, keep offensive rebounding them, making the big guys play. Really, this could be a great game for Jimmy Bell and Okonkwo, and really just, setting hard picks, grinding them out. I think that's honestly the best way to defend him from shooting threes. Make him tired. Make those shots fall short.
There you go. Good point. You kept mentioning bench points, but I think you might be onto something there, because as you were talking, I was looking at Maryland's stats. They have 4 guys that average double figures. But once you get past that, they have a major drop off.
Yes.
And even in minutes played, I mean, they've got 5 guys that average 30 minutes plus a game. So I definitely like the fact that that's a great point you made, Rush, about the depth. They don't have a lot like we do. I mean, we've got guys like Joe Toussaint, James Okonkwo. I don't think Mo's going to be playing, but, you've got even Seth Wilson. These guys can come off the bench and make a big difference. And I think we definitely have an advantage in that part of the game. Paul, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, back to your 3-point question. I think it was a team. They shoot 33%. They average about 6.8 made a game. I'm not going to lie. If that's what they make against us, I'm not going to be too worried. I think 6.8 is a pretty big number, but I wholeheartedly expect us to make more than that in this game.
Right.
I just think Eric's going to come out. I think he's going to want to hit that number himself. To Ryan's point, it was an excellent point. We've seen it before with Jimmer Fredette, Mac McClung, any of these guys you want to name. Stephen Curry, the greatest shooter of all time, broke out in a Davidson uniform, right? Might have crossed West Virginia in his path at some point in time. These guys all were pretty much no names until, maybe in their region they were, but nationally until they hit the tournament. And Eric Stevenson is tailor-made to go on one of those kind of runs in a tournament. He's also tailor-made to do the opposite with his streaky nature. But I think he's the kind of guy that rises to these occasions more than the other way around. The only thing that would prevent him from doing it is something physical, like has happened already in the past this season.
Mhm.
We've heard tell of him having the flu a couple times. His legs, because he's one of those kind of shooters. And Ryan, you can probably attest to this. Eric Stevenson is the kind of jump shooter that needs a lot of lift on his jump shot.
Mhm.
I mean, he gets a lot of lift on his jump shot, more so than usual, than the average guy. So if he doesn't have legs, it really affects his shot. He starts to overcompensate, and things don't fall for him. So this rest was good. I think your blessing in disguise phrase was perfectly worded. And losing to Kansas, never want to lose a game, but we needed the rest. We were really beat up, really beat up. You look at our strength of schedule, and there was only a couple teams that could say they had it worse than us. So,
yeah, I mean, unless we were going to win the Big 12 tournament, which I don't think was going to happen, beating Kansas alone wasn't going to do a whole lot for us, in my opinion. From a seeding, we might have moved up. We might have moved up to 1-8, maybe, but I don't even know that we would have.
We probably would have been the 8, and Maryland would have been the 9.
Right.
It would have been the same.
Right.
Yeah.
You're wearing a different color uniform.
Yeah.
Or maybe we play Illinois or somebody different, but we're still the same seed.
Maybe. Yeah, I just don't think it changes that much. I think this rest is much more important. Now, if this was a team that was, I thought I had a shot to win the Big 12 tournament, I wouldn't feel that way. But I don't think they did because of the run they just had to be on to do it. Playing that 4 or 5 games in 5 days deal is just, I mean, my gosh, it's brutal, especially in that conference.
Couple points I want to bring up to talking to you, Paul, is something on our show, Ryan and I. So we kind of started doing we would preview teams to start the season and being like, hey, who in this game is the X factor for the Mountaineers? If they win, it's because this person stepped up. Well, by midway point is we eliminated the X factor because every X factor was just Eric Stevenson. And I think it's just something we've been saying all year round is this team either lives or dies by Eric Stevenson. And
this
I think
is team's identity.
Yeah, it is. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, because not necessarily saying he's going to step up every game and be the one, because also I want to give a shout out to Emmett Matthews, because he's stepped up a lot too these past couple of games. I don't think he's getting the credit he deserves, but Emmett has really stepped up these past couple of weeks. But with Eric, is the live or die by him, is sometimes living by Eric is Eric knowing, hey, I may not have it tonight, but I'm going to set up other guys, or I'm going to attack defense more, or hey, this is Keaty's game. Because Keaty's another person we've been saying is the glue of this team. He's the one that sticks it together, offense, defense. So sometimes it's, hey, maybe Eric doesn't shoot lights out, but Eric's not getting in the team's way either. And that's why this team lives or dies by Eric Stevenson. And Couz, another point I wanted to bring up with you as well. You earlier in the show, you brought up the 3 of 5. Mountaineers have won the past 3 of 5. Don't forget, one of those losses was to Kansas by 2 points in Lawrence. And Kansas, if we want to talk about Maryland being a great 3-point shooting team, we faced Kansas this year 3 times, who's an excellent 3-point shooting team. And we played them first in Morgantown, and then last in the Big 12 tournament. And the reason those 2 games are kind of outliers, maybe we can learn a little bit from it, is one, the first game in Morgantown is we were still figuring out our stuff, and Keaty had a concussion. He was out that game. The Big 12 tournament, we just came off of Texas Tech and a grinder of the last couple of weeks in the season. So the wheels fell from under us. I think how we played Kansas in Lawrence is that script. And Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. You've been in the locker room yourself. That is a good script to use against this Maryland team.
Yeah, because they make shots in catch and shoot situations. So you got to be able to get them off the line and make him make perimeter shots off the bounce, because that's a lot harder than catch and shoot. I think a guy that's an X factor, I know we live and die by Eric, and we know what we're going to get from Keaty. I think Trey Mitchell's a huge X factor in March. He's a guy that you can throw the ball to in the short corner and on the block and face up. I think the physicality of the Big 12 wore him down a little bit, and he kind of hit a wall kind of mid-February, end of February, but then came on a little bit at the end. Now we're out of the Big 12. I think we see a little bit of what we saw from Trey Mitchell in the non-conference as well, and Joe Tucson. I mean, we got to have a little bit more from our bench too to start winning some of these hard games in March.
If Trey starts playing like he did against Florida, Pitt, I mean, you saw Pitt was trying to throw double teams at him. He was dribbling around him and dunking on people.
Yeah.
Like, I really thought we had a possible player of the year. He was playing like that at the beginning of the season. And then, like you said, you go up against Jalen Wilson and guys like that, your size, who are just a little more gifted than you are. It's tough, And to Trey's credit, he really stepped up and played well towards the end of the year, like you said. And he's another guy that is not known nationally that could have a whale of a tournament and be on the national radar by the end of this thing. He's got the ability. He's just got to knock down more shots. He's hanging just a little bit too low on a percentage scale for me on his 3-point shot. It seems like doesn't it just seem like he misses just a few too many when that's been a strength for him in the past. Obviously, his back to the basket game is great, but it seems like he just missed a few too many shots in the middle of the year there.
I think it might have been his legs a little bit. It's like
might have been.
He didn't play the whole year at Texas, and I think he hit that initial Big 12 wall that it seems like everybody hits their first time around. And
That's
Eric hit it more. Eric hit it more beginning of February, late January, I thought, and then he was just awesome down the stretch. So, and you're absolutely right. Getting Eric really elevates on his jump shots, kind of like Sean McNeil did last year. Those guys really get up and they need their legs. So I think you saw Sean in March when we played Syracuse, where he lit it up for like 7 threes, and Morehead State the game before that, where that rest going into March, it really helped a guy like Sean McNeil, and I think it'll help Eric Stevenson in a similar fashion.
Another Great thing point. About Trey Mitchell, too, I just want to bring up 2 very important games at the end of the regular season for the Mountaineers. The Oklahoma State game in Morgantown and the Iowa State game in Ames. What happened in both of those games involving Trey Mitchell? He got involved, as Ryan likes to say, in a couple dust-ups.
Yeah.
And then what else has Trey Mitchell just witnessed? He watched his old team just win the Big 12 tournament. So Trey Mitchell is as good as a player as he wants to be. And March is a time to get motivated and bring the fire. If Trey brings the fire, he can do whatever he wants to do.
I agree.
It's all up here with Trey. It is. And that good don't mean it good or bad. It just is what it is situation. He is capable of doing whatever he wants. But he needs to bring it. He needs to bring that passion. And hey, March is a great time to do it.
You know who I think about when you as you guys were talking about Trey Mitchell coming on late, those kind of things? Joe Alexander. Now, I'm not saying Trey Mitchell's going to be a lottery pick, but I think Trey's got a similar skill set. Except he can shoot the 3 better than Joe wasn't a 3-point shooter. And Joe's probably more athletic. I know he's a lot more athletic. He can jump out of the gym. But my point is, if he could have that type of March, this team can go a long way, and just come on late. And because Trey, in my opinion, is the most all-around skilled player on this team. I mean,
no doubt.
When he applies himself and does what he should do and can do, he's as good as anybody. About anybody. I think he's, and maybe I'm off base here, and I'm not a good scout, but I think Trey Mitchell. You're right. I think Trey Mitchell has the ability to play in the NBA.
His skill set, yeah, absolutely.
It's just all up here.
He's got to put on some more muscle, but yeah.
But I mean, I think if he comes back, which kind of off topic, but if he comes back next year, which I think he needs to, puts on some more weight, improves his game a little bit, and gets his head in right, I think he can play in the NBA. I really do. I think he's that skilled.
Yep. Just want to know if he's got that dog in him or not. Exactly. I think he does. But does he have it like Javon did, like Deuce did, to get better from 1 year to the next in the off season?
Yeah.
Things are shaping up to be pretty exciting next year. We're way off base here, but when you start to think about Jose Perez and Silvio and guys like that, and the cryptic tweets we're seeing, and they've got me thinking more guys are coming. I'm really excited about this next year's team, even though we've got a great team this year. Just had to say that.
Yeah, I do think the future's bright, especially if the guys that can come back do.
Don't let Bob Huggins figure out the transfer portal. Don't let it happen.
I think he may already have, but we'll see. Guys, any other points you guys want to make before we jump off of here?
Let's predict this score, baby.
Let's do it.
I I feel like March games are lower scoring because it's so every possession just has so much weight to it. It's do or die. So I think it's a lower scoring game, and I'll go the Mountaineers grind this thing out 73-66. Make their free throws at the end to put away the Terps. I think it's a 1-2 possession game throughout. I think we lead majority of it. Kind of like the game, 7-8 years ago. I think it's kind of like that. We wear them out, grind it out, and I'll go 73-66. Good guys, go Mountaineers.
Rush.
I like 6 points, and I don't think we're being homers with this. Ryan and I, when we saw the matchup, felt really good about this right away. Also want to bring up a point too. To Ryan's being very humble right now. Ryan was he was a student manager the last time we beat Maryland, went to the Sweet 16, has a nice Sweet 16 ring, and the year after he went to the Final Four with South Carolina. So just want to throw Ryan's March Madness resume out there too. I like the Mountaineers by 6, 70-64. Feel good about it.
Paul.
Interesting. I would no way ever say you guys are wrong. I do think we're going to win this game, but just seeing that thing keeps on clicking in my mind. The ESPN stat when we score 75 or less, we're 0-10 or whatever it was. It just makes me wonder if we need to get over that number or not. Point taken about the defensive battle, Ryan, for sure, or the physical defense. Obviously, you have more hands-on experience at this level than any of us three. So certainly you're due that. But my instincts tell me that 78's a number. So I'm going to go 78-68. I think the Mountaineers pull away late. Free throws ice it. Keeter Johnson smokes them down the stretch at the line. I think that's what happens.
I like it.
All right, guys. I'm going with I'm kind of with Paul on this. I think that does mean something that they need to score. I do think they need to eclipse that 75 mark. So I'm going to go with 77-71 Mountaineers. 6-point win. I like the 6 points, but I think they score a few more. Yeah.
So we're all in agreement. They just grind it out and make their foul shots at the end. I think that's the narrative. Yeah, I think we all agree on that. It's going to be a good
with
game.
With the potential for it to get ugly, even honestly, I really do think it could get ugly for Maryland. But I don't want to come off too homer this year.
Yeah.
But I really do feel like we're a better team 1 through 8 or 9, however you want to say it.
Well, Doug Gottlieb doesn't. But that's. Did you guys happen to hear Doug Gottlieb's comments last night?
No. What he said? Maryland's going to win.
Well, no, he didn't even. They were talking.
No,
about
he went
Alabama.
worse than that.
And he was on the Field of 68 show, and they were going around asking and they said, well, who has the best chance of knocking off Alabama? And they said, well, anyway, somebody made a comment that, well, they've got to get past Maryland or West Virginia first because he was talking about Creighton. He thought Creighton would be a tough matchup for Alabama. And one of the other panelists said, well, they've got to get past Maryland or West Virginia first. And he said, West Virginia's no good. They're not any good.
He said it was more disdain than that.
Oh yeah,
he's kind of been a hater all year. I think he's a little bitter about his pokes, but hey, man, I'm on the side of the poke should have been in. There's no doubt, but yeah.
I was preaching the same message last night.
No doubt.
He was like, nah, they're no good. West Virginia's not any good. I'm thinking, but Maryland is, and
but he was mad when he said it.
Yeah, he wasn't happy.
West Virginia's no good like that. Like that's how he was saying.
And he even made a snarky face. I mean,
yeah, and like the guy that said because the dude was like indignant. He was like, West Virginia or Maryland? Like he was like, you got to get by them.
Yeah. He said
West Virginia's no good.
He said,
trust me,
because he couldn't believe this. The other guy seemed to think the way West Virginia plays is going to make them a tough out.
Oh yeah.
But Doug Gottlieb didn't seem to agree with that sentiment.
I guess Gottlieb didn't watch the last time Alabama played a non-SEC team when Oklahoma put it on him by 30.
I don't think he probably hasn't even watched a West Virginia game all year, to be honest, other than when they played Oklahoma State, which, in one of those games, we weren't very good. The other one we were.
I'm assuming, he's a former player there, obviously, has a lot of big connection to Oklahoma State. he's probably really upset over them missing the tournament. I would imagine,
Yeah.
because you look at it, they had a better conference record than we did, head-to-head win. You could make an argument for them to get in over us. I'm not saying they should have, but there's an argument to be made. Whether or not it's legit or not, it's another whole story. But I think, if you're a fan of their team, you're probably thinking that along those lines because they had like a better conference record. They won a bunch of good, nice games. They definitely should have got in over Pitt or Mississippi State. Good Lord.
Or
I think
NC State.
I think they just didn't want to put. I'll be honest with you. I don't think they wanted eight teams in the same conference in the tournament. That's my opinion.
Probably.
That's what I thought too.
And
You've got to look at the balance of it, like we were saying last night, Couz.
Yeah.
It's got to be balanced across the country. And it's a tough job they have to make it that way.
Yeah. That's my opinion. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I'm more mad about what happened to them last year, that whole debacle where they got banned for something stupid that every team in the country was probably doing.
Yeah, no,
Rutgers
the
is another bad
NCAA
one.
has had it out for Oklahoma State. This isn't the year that they beat Oklahoma 3 times and they put Trae Young in the tournament over them. It was
I
like,
remember
what? They've stuck it to Oklahoma State 3 that I can remember. I think maybe even 4 just in the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
You say that, and I was watching Lunardi and Van Pelt talk last night, and Van Pelt brought that exact thing up about the committee's memory. Or Lunardi said the committee's memory is really long. And apparently there was some public statements made by Oklahoma State about them last year. And they both believed that might have something to do with why they were snubbed. So it's a good point.
Well, that's a joke then.
Let me ask you this. Oklahoma State and Pitt in an imaginary world play tomorrow for the play-in game. What does Vegas have that spread at?
I'd say probably 5.5.
I was thinking 4.5. Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
something like that.
I was going to say 3.5, but yeah, somewhere in that range, 3.5, 5.5, 5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, there's no doubt who's the better basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas Tech did it, to be honest.
Oh yeah,
and
I'll take Mike Boynton over Capel as well.
Yeah. All right, guys. Everybody, remember the game is this coming Thursday, March 16th at 12:15 p.m. Don't know what network yet it'll be. Actually, it's on CBS.
CBS. Jim Nantz.
Yeah,
Jim Nantz has it.
We get the Jim Nantz after recruit.
Yeah.
Yes, very first game of March Madness.
Wow.
Not counting the
how lucky your way.
Not counting the play.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, that sounds Couz. I know we got to get off here, but I was getting some vibes from like the kickoff game from earlier, in football season. We're kicking off Madness. But I felt like going to that game, we had a great chance. I feel like we got a great chance in this one too. It's gonna be exciting, man. Jim Nantz, wow.
I'm just glad to be back in the tournament, man. It makes the tournament so much more fun when your team's in it.
Yeah,
so much more fun. But anyway,
especially when you go into this like 16 and the 8, man, it gets fun.
Everybody, don't forget to go check Ryan and Rush's show out. The Ryan and Rush show. It's on all of your podcast platforms. It's on YouTube. Interact with them on Twitter at Ryan and Rush Show, at Rambling Rush, at Moneyline_Mac. Obviously, to interact with Paul and I on Twitter as well. We really appreciate you guys tuning into this episode. And we're out. And let's go Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers. I'll be selling doctor's notes for 11 o'clock on Thursday. So just $5. $5. We'll keep them cheap. So just let me know.
Everybody remember that.